Everyone, I am thrilled to bring you my first ever LinkedIn Live. My name is Juliana Chan, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Singapore based science focused media company Wild Type Media Group. And I'm pleased to invite my very first guest, the one and only Dr. Finian Tan, founder and chairman of Vickers Ventures Partners. Hi, Finian, how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me. It's an
Well,
honor.
I have to take care of some very important housekeeping matters, which is number one, to thank you, editors of LinkedIn, for giving me this amazing live privileges to broadcast directly to all my followers on LinkedIn. I know that it is still in beta mode, and hardly anyone in Asia or Singapore has this. So thank you for giving me this honor. Just want to say hi to more people who have come in into the room. Hello, Lydia. Thanks for coming. Hi, Joseph. How are you doing? Someone who is anonymous says, congratulations on your first live feed. And before we go into the conversation, I want to remind everyone, if you can, to share our LinkedIn Live video on your feed. So if you look at the bottom of the video, on the right-hand corner, you will see a share button. Please kindly share it with your feed so more people can join us today. All right. Okay, without further ado, Finian, I call first dibs because you're on my feed, I guess, and I'm the moderator. I get to ask the first couple of questions, or maybe three. And then once I'm done with you, I'm going to toss you to the mobs. So, and then I hope that they ask you questions that you're ready to answer. I hope you're ready.
I'll try my best.
Okay, so everyone has a good origin story, and certainly you are one of them who has an amazing story to tell. And the story that I particularly want to hear is that of your investment, your seed investment in a relatively untested founder at that time, Robin Lee of Baidu. Of course, we know now that Baidu has IPO'd and is doing extremely well. It's valued in the range of the tens of billions of dollars. So, Finian, would you care to fill us in with the details? And please go heavy on the details. We want to hear the story. Off to you.
Okay. Actually, this happened in the 1999-2000 period. So it was a very, um, I guess, difficult period because everything was going up like crazy in terms of price on the back of eyeballs um, and with no path to profitability. So, there was Ask Jeeves, there was Alta Vista, InfoSeek, InfoSpace, etc. And I was a bit shell shocked because things were going up so quickly. So I didn't make any investment, and my partners were making a lot of investments in the US, Ed Draper, Fisher Gervitz, and ePlanet Ventures. And so there was a bit of pressure for me to invest, and I had done nothing because I was sort of like a deer in front of headlights. Um, so I decided to sit down and draw a line in the middle of my book, and on the left put what I knew for sure that would happen, and on the right, what I was still confused about. So I started filling up all the right companies, like Alta Vista, InfoSeek, etc., Yahoo, um, Amazon, etc., because I was still unsure about their business models. On the left, what I was sure about, I put that the internet will definitely grow, and number two, China will definitely grow, and that's all I got. So I asked myself, what can I invest in that will surely make money if these two things happen? And I thought about it, and I eventually said, it must be the operating system of the internet in China. But what's the operating system of the internet? I asked myself. And after thinking about it, I said, it must be search because that's what everybody does when they first go in. So I asked the team, what do we know about search? And everybody said not very much. So I sent them out to study all the incumbents in search, talk to all the customers, and find out basically who has the best tech. And after 30 days, we huddled together, and Baidu really stood out. And it's easy to rank search because it's relevance and speed. So it's very objective. And Baidu, because of its new architecture, was number one. So we decided to go in big. And in fact, it was the only investment we made in the year 2000. We became the largest shareholder of Baidu, more than the founders, just because it was the only company we wanted to really go in big.
All right. Thanks, Finian, for sharing us that story. I think the company continues to prosper and do well. So good eye, good eye. I'm
It
going to
was
take
actually
you
my first. It was my first investment in venture capital.
talk about
So what a
jackpot.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was only 15 people at that time. Our office was just in Beijing University. We renovated our office for $100.
Wow.
Um, it was just one room with 15 people sitting on one big desk. Zero revenues. There were zero customers.
So I'm going to change the topic right now and take you back maybe 3 years before, where you took an invitation from the Singapore government to return to Singapore to take on a very important role as Deputy Secretary at MTI, which is the Singapore Ministry for Trade and Industry. There was a little bit of a change in portfolio for you, and you must have considered it very seriously before you took it. What made you decide to take on that job, and what do you do when you were DS?
Wow, no kidding. That was a life-changing decision that I made, and it it was really a very big crossroads in my life. I was then running a company called J. Aaron, part of the
Hmm.
Goldman Sachs family.
Yes.
J. Aaron does all the trading, and I was running Asia from the Singapore office. I had just returned, and then suddenly, I was asked to be Deputy Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Um, from a financial perspective, it was tough. Um, I think it was reported that it was less than the tax I still owed for the year before. Uh, so it was a tough decision from that perspective. But it's difficult to say no, when you're asked to do something like this. It's a service to the country.
Hmm.
I was then only 34 years old.
Wow.
And after a lot of discussion internally, I had enough savings, etc. So financially, it wasn't too difficult. But so I decided to take the plunge. And what really excited me was the task that they gave me was to try to make Singapore into a Silicon Valley of the East, um, which I was very intrigued about at that time. I had spent my career in trading, so but the internet was like exploding, and China was exploding. So I was very excited, and I made three recommendations to government. One was the setting up of the Buona Vista Science Hub.
Mm.
The second was basically raising $1 billion, fully funded by the government, to try to jumpstart venture capital and startups. And the third was the formation of an interministerial committee to change rules and regulations to allow startups to thrive. So cabinet approved all three and made me the chairman of all three. And really, that started my life in venture. So I am very thankful to the government for that.
All right. Finian, thank you for sharing with us that very interesting point of your career. But then I want to now bring you to current day as you are now chairman and founder of Vickers Venture Partners. Could you share with us the story of how you founded your very own VC firm, which, by the way, I just looked at some indicators that say it is now the fourth most consistent, top performing venture capital firm around the world. So, congratulations on your success since then. Would you tell us more about what caused you to start your own firm and also, please, your investment philosophy?
Okay. Um, well, at DFJE Planet, I was head of Asia. I was the founding partner for Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the chance to do things sort of according to my style, because I was chairman of the Asian Investment Committee, and I hired the people and I built the team. And because of Baidu and other successes, the performance was very good. We did something like 13x net for our portfolio, which would have made it the best performing portfolio in the world, but we were part of a global fund, and so there was no ranking for just the Asia portion. I did some things that were quite unique, and I wasn't sure whether it was due to those sort of uniqueness that made me successful, whether it was because I had a very big name, Draper Fisher, ePlanet Ventures, behind me. So I wanted to try it to see whether I could do it on my own. And so in 2003, I came out and I found sort of five like-minded people who believed in me. And we started Vickers Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3, Fund 4, Fund 5, and now Fund 6. It was tough in the beginning because a lot of people said, well, you succeeded because of Draper Fisher. Some people said, oh, you succeeded because you had this Chinese team, which you no longer have. You're Singaporean, how can you do business in China, etc. So a lot of people who saw the glass half empty. But we persevered. Our first fund was only 9 million. Baidu didn't go public yet. I went out on the story that I have this great company, Baidu, that was going public. And people said, well, when it goes public, come back and see me. So it went public and it was very big, but by then we already closed Fund 1 with a smallish fund. But now we have over 3 billion. We have 8 offices worldwide. New York, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, London, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore. But Singapore is still the headquarters because I live here and I like living here.
So do I. We are most all right, Finian. I guess we have many fans out here who would love to talk to you and get insights from you on their own careers and investment decisions. Before we go to our questions, I just would like to invite everyone to share our LinkedIn Live video on your feed. So on the bottom right corner of this video that you're watching, please share it on your feed so that more people can join us. And definitely do ask any questions that you may have to Finian. He's all yours on startups, entrepreneurship, investment advice, certainly what to do for entrepreneurs like myself in a COVID pandemic and in an upcoming recession. And of course, if you have any questions about Finian's portfolio companies as well, some of them include RWDC, a biopolymer company, Samaman, and maybe more to come in the COVID pandemic. So let's see what we have here. Okay, shall we take questions, Finian? I have one
Please,
that looks
please.
interesting. Zachary Lin, thanks for joining us today. Finian, what is the biggest lesson you learned when you first ventured out on your own? Tough one.
Well, I guess never spending more money than you have, not being too much in debt, not over promising. Most important is to make sure that you hire the right people.
Good one.
Yeah, what's important is the differentiating competitive edge that you have
Mm,
as a company. What makes you different, and be open to changing it along the way. We refined our strategy a few times actually, and basically cut out the things that were not performing and double down on the things that were. Um, and we, when you start a company, right, you become a boy Friday, right? You have to do everything,
yes.
and hire more Indians than Indian chiefs when you're starting out because everybody needs to roll their sleeves and
Mm.
put in the work.
You mentioned trying to have a differentiator and hiring the right people. Is there a certain kind of person you look for when you make your hires for your venture partners?
I'm always looking for successors to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they don't have to be a clone. Uh, but what's important is that they are multi-skilled if they are going
Mm,
to be the CEO, because the CEO can't just be good on one thing. He needs to be sort of multi-skilled. And the
mm.
other most important thing that I look out for is I try to hire people smarter than me.
But by the way, I want to give a shout out to my friends at that I know at Vickers, Jeff Chi, Sing Hong, Bao Hui, hello from Singapore. I know none of you are in town right now. Okay, I've got more questions coming in. Sunil Rai asks, I guess it's related to the first question. How does one make a move into venture capital? So imagine a fresh grad or a young person. What skill sets and experience is required in your view?
It's hard to get into venture capital because
Mm,
they don't train. It's not like,
mm,
investment banking. They do a milk round in the UK. They come to your university and they hire like 50 people and then they put you on a training scheme. Venture capitalists don't do that. So it's hard. You almost need to know people, or get some sort of internship or something like that. And a lot depends on luck because there are normally one or two openings for a very specific type of uh, expertise. Like for
mm,
example, and we hire mostly PhDs because we are a deep tech firm, and we have a few people in AI and IT that are older and sort of retiring in the next 5, 10 years. So I might have one uh, person that knows India very well and has a PhD in artificial intelligence. So it's like very unique and very specific. And such vacancies only come once in a while. So you mentioned Sin Hong and Po Hui.
mm,
So I had vacancies in life sciences, and I wanted somebody who knew Palo Alto, and both
mm,
of them are from Stanford, so perfect. And they have settled in very well, and they're there now. Then I was looking for another guy in London, and I had some gaps in photonics, basically. And if he came with some other skills, would be good. So I found a guy. His name is Dr. Petros, and he has artificial intelligence and an expert on lasers. And he's from Cambridge, our alma mater.
yes, of course. Okay, Sunil, I hope that answers your question. Now, from Su Wentan, what what are you looking for, Finian, in the founder when you invest in their company? I think that goes also back to what you were looking for when you saw Robin, and many other founders that came after.
Yeah, we're a deep tech firm.
Mm,
So before even coming to the founder, what's most important is we're looking for a real breakthrough.
yes.
So a breakthrough in that respective field, doesn't matter what field. So real breakthrough that has already been achieved, but nobody yet believes.
Mm,
And when we believe, we will bring in our weight and our friends, etc., and support the company. Take RWDC for example, which is a
yes.
Singapore company, and they have biopolymers, right? That are totally biodegradable. They cost like plastic, they feel like plastic, and they are 100% biodegradable. You can leave them bobbing in the sea, and they will disappear into fish food. Um, so that's a real breakthrough because there are many companies that meet 2 out of 3 criteria, but
Mm,
nobody, in our view, met with all three except RWDC. So when we came to them, people still didn't believe, but we did after we did our due diligence. And so we've piled on a lot of assistance to this company ever since then. And they have raised their new round, which will value them at $1 billion, just over a short time of a year.
by the way, as someone who writes about the environment and cares about, climate change and pollution, I'm thankful that you have decided to invest in the future of technology, plastics that degrade, and I really want to thank your Vickers and yourself for doing that. I think that's the right move.
Actually, almost all our companies are very, very impactful.
Mm,
We have a company called Emergex that
mm,
is hot on the heels of Moderna and the like,
mm.
trying to find a vaccine for COVID-19. And they are very, very unique because, I mean, you're a scientist. It's the only one that is focused on killer T cells, cytotoxic T cells.
Yes,
Everybody else is working on antibodies, and antibodies have a lot of disadvantages.
right.
So this is very exciting for us. It's based in Oxford, and the vaccine is actually ready and going through animal testing now for toxicity. And we expect to file for human clinical trials next month. And it would
Well,
be a co-trial with dengue.
wow, wow.
So,
Okay, that's
so
good.
with
We have
one
a
sweep, we will solve both problems for Singapore.
because we have an outbreak going on now, right now. I think.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
that's pretty bad, isn't it? To have to deal with two viral outbreaks. Okay, I see a friend of mine has showed up. Hello, Ivan Vachkov. Ivan is a young global leader at the World Economic Forum, like like myself. Actually, many of them are in the feed. He asks you, Finian, is there any area of technology that you wish you knew more about? Thank you.
Oh, tons, tons. Um, we can't be experts at everything, but we don't need to be in order to assess a company. What we do is we hire scientists. So if you remember in school, uh, there is not 100 different subjects, right, to understand science. There's biology, there's physics, and there's chemistry, and then of course there's IT in terms of technology and artificial intelligence. So we have staffed ourselves with experts in these four areas, which allows us to appreciate technology developments in any of the fields in the world. So, in general, when we first are introduced to a company, we don't know it very well. So, I'll give you an example. We were introduced recently to a company called Ever, and they
Mm.
said that they can reduce the price of geothermal energy by a factor of three. So that was very exciting because geothermal is the greenest of all green energy, and it's base load because it's always hot under the earth, unlike solar and wind. So geothermal has always been the holy grail, and this company had made a very big breakthrough. So we were very excited, and we studied it, and we believed in it, and we invested. And since then, they have tested it in the field, and everything worked like a dream. And in fact, they have now progressed to reach 10x in improvements on geothermal prices. So they are starting to be in the realm of fossil fuel prices. So
Mm.
this is very exciting because this can truly change the world. And they can dig and produce geothermal energy anywhere, anytime, from 80% of the earth.
Well, there you go, Ivan. I hope you are now looking into geothermal energy and ever. Is that right? Ever.
Correct. Spelled EAVOR, like
There you
endeavor
go.
without an end. Yeah.
All right. Another friend, Lutfi Siddiqui, uh, also from the World Economic Forum. What is the role of venture capital in Singapore's post-pandemic recovery? Actually, Finin, I want to tack on another question on that, which is, is venture capital still a very good asset class to invest in? Could you please, also answer that
Uh,
one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think venture is very unusual. I don't know if you're familiar with the terms beta and alpha.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if a particular company price goes up in tandem with the stock market, and when the stock market goes down, it also goes down in tandem.
Right.
Then it has a beta of one. If it goes up by half and it goes down by half, then it has a beta of 0.5. If it has no relation to the market, then it has a beta of zero.
Mm.
Uh, Alpha is sort of the manager's own efforts, regardless of where the markets are going. So if it goes up by one and you go up by two, then you have an alpha of one and a beta
Right.
of one, basically. And if it goes down by one and you go up by three, then you have an alpha of four.
Mm.
So basically, alpha is the manager's own skills. Venture capital is one of the few asset classes that have almost no beta. It is
Right.
all alpha. Because I'll give you an example. When I invested in Baidu, I had a few choices. There was another company called OpenFind. In fact, it was the number one incumbent. It was a technology provider to NetEase, Sohu, and Sina. And Baidu was not the incumbent; it was the challenger. Had we invested in OpenFind, it would be zero today.
Mm.
But we chose Baidu, and we made more than 1,000x.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter whether there is COVID-19 or no COVID-19, or whether there is a economic collapse or not. I would have made maybe 500 times or 2,000 times, depending on the market. But had I invested in open fine, it would be zero regardless of market conditions.
Right.
So that's what I mean by it all being due to alpha.
Mm,
So because of that, we when we select companies, it's very important that we choose breakthrough technologies
mm,
and we invest in something that has already made the breakthrough, but
right.
people don't believe in order to lower our risk.
So, with all
Now,
this knowledge, how to help Singapore? Yes,
yeah, so I was coming to
nationalistic question.
post pandemic, right? I think the key question about this pandemic is how long is it going to last?
Mm,
If it lasts for another year, then I expect a V-shaped recovery because governments will pump prime, help everyone in the meantime, and then all the people are still there, all the companies are still there, all the brands are still there. It can sort of recover very quickly. If this pandemic goes on for 5 years,
mm,
the governments won't be able to support all these brands and all these companies, and they will die. And a restart will take a lot of time. It's like switching off a power plant. You need to reheat the water so that steam comes out. And it's like a swimming pool of water. It takes days to reheat everything. So the restart will be very slow and there will be a lot of unemployment. So the scenario will be very dependent on how quickly the recovery will be. In my view, because I'm very deep into the vaccine sort of discovery business, I'm very optimistic that within 12 months you will see a vaccine,
mm,
which will lead to herd immunity, an effective vaccine. Obviously, I hope that Emergex will be one of the major contenders. Um, but besides us, there are some people that have really innovative ideas. So because of that, I think it would be about a year, and we can expect a sort of V-shaped recovery. And
mm.
then venture capital, those people with funds will continue to invest and will do very well because they invest at the low points. And venture capitalists who have no money now, unfortunately, it's a very tough time to raise capital.
I see. Well,
Mm.
full disclosure, I was a graduate student of Bob Langer, the co-founder of Moderna. Had him on my show before you. And actually at Davos, I also moderated a panel with Stefan Bancel, founder, CEO of Moderna. But I must say, Finian, this is not a race where we only can have one winner. We need many, many
Absolutely.
vaccines and treatments. So I really hope Emergex does well and gets us out of this nightmare, really, this lockdown that we are living in. I'm going.
Moderna is a super duper company.
Mm-hmm,
They are in the messenger RNA space, which is
right.
so fundamental, right? It can cure so many things. And if it works, it would be an incredible contribution to humankind.
Mm,
It's not just for COVID-19, it's for many things.
mm,
But in COVID-19, they are antibody based though, and we are focused on T cells. So
right.
actually, we are complementary.
Indeed, indeed. And we might need, more than one vaccine per per situation. I'm going to take you on a little bit more personal question. Okay. Liu Yuchun asks, in your opinion, Finian, what key ingredients in your personal upbringing and education contributed significantly to your success today? I think people are also trying to learn from you and take your stories and put it into their own life and gain success as well in their own careers. So what is it? What
Uh,
is that special ingredient?
I think since I'm a deep tech venture capitalist, it's important that I have a background in the hard sciences.
Mm,
So I did my PhD in engineering, so that's very useful. Uh, and because I did a PhD, I'm not fearful of new
mm,
tech,
that's true.
even though I know what the whole process is like. I can look at research papers. Um, and I've also sort of included other people in my team that have expertise in other areas. So if you ask me what is my main contribution in my firm, um, firstly, I'm not afraid to hire very good people and smart people,
Mm,
and um, and that's very important because the team is the true contributor, the contributor to success, because you need to sort of consult a lot. with people who you respect. So I have the hard sciences. I'm not so bad at selling, which is important for a CEO. Um, I'm able to, I guess, tell stories um, and make it very easily understood because people who invest in you are not necessarily experts in any field that you are very interested in. So selling is very important. So building a team, having a
Mm-hmm.
good hard science in venture capital, uh, and thirdly, be able to tell stories and sell.
Thanks, Finian. That's a very good answer. I saw this pop up on my feed and I actually kind of like this question. I know many venture capital firms that are very bullish about investing in Indonesia. So Kelvin Fu, thanks for your question. Finian, what is your perspective of investing in startups in Indonesia?
Indonesia is very exciting.
Mm,
It's got 200 over million people. It's like the fourth largest country in the world. When they get their act together, they just scream. Um, it's a lot of B2C type startups that
yes.
we get, and we are not quite in that space.
Mm,
Why? Because if you look at risk, you can divide risk into three buckets. One is technology. Does the technology work? The second is IP. Do you own it? Are you the lead? Is it hard for other people to copy? And three, market. Will people buy your
mm,
product when it's ready? Many VCs take any and all risks. We did too when we were starting, but now we only take one risk, and that is in the technology end. We don't take
mm,
market risk anymore. It's a bit riskier to take market risk. I'll give you an example. Let's say there is a new Facebook competitor, um, and technology works. You can see it's great. It's better than Facebook. IP, well, it's coded, so people cannot copy it so quickly. And third, is the market. Will people use it? Now, having a PhD doesn't help me guess whether people will use this new
yes.
Facebook. And having a team of sort of PhDs like myself, experts in their field, they can only guess whether they will use it, but they can't guess whether other people will use it. So this is too big of a guess for us.
Mm,
On the other hand, if you have a cure for cancer, the market is fixed, regardless of whether there is a pandemic or no pandemic. The prevalence, the incidence, the mortality, everything is known. Right? You just go to who.com and you will find, all the data that you need. IP, since it's a new molecule, it's protected. What's unknown is the tech. Do you think
mm.
this science will work? And there, if you have some serious smart biologist, you can make a very educated guess that is better than the average MBA. So
Is
because
that
of that, we focus on the tech. So coming to Indonesia, there are not so many of such deals.
mm,
Um, so we are not so heavily invested in Indonesia, but we have exposure.
is that Finian, why you invested in Samumed? Is that why?
Absolutely. Samaman is
Mm,
such an exciting company. They have now six distinct and different molecules
mm.
in human clinical trials covering 15 different diseases, eight of them oncology, osteoarthritis, IPF, pulmonary fibrosis. They even have a solution for alopecia for people who are balding.
That's very important, actually.
Yeah,
Mm.
so it's very exciting. They have two of them in phase three human clinical trials, and we expect to finish it early first quarter next year, and then have an approval probably in early 2022,
Mm. Okay,
with a potential IPO along the way.
thanks for the update. I'm also watching Samumed, by the way. I'm tracking. Okay, so we have many startup founders and entrepreneurs in our audience, and they really want to find out how to pick your mind. How to pick the
Sure.
mind of a venture capitalist. Okay, the text is pretty small. Ada Lim, thanks for joining us. Hi, Finian. What are your tips on how a startup pitch should be done successfully to potential investors? Should financial projections be more aggressive to be more successful in getting funding?
We never believe financial projections because yeah, because they can be anything, right? You can predict
Yes.
10 million, you can predict 100 million, 20 million, 5 million. Nobody knows.
Mm,
So I don't think that's so important. They need to be realistic, right? Because
mm,
if as we are digging and asking questions and we find out that a lot of it was fluff or lies, then we'll lose confidence in the entrepreneur. And then we have to discount everything that he says. Uh, um, in addition, to the financial projection. So I think it needs to be realistic. That's
mm,
important. But what do we see? First of all, it needs to meet with our basic criteria, right? We're looking for the risk being on the technology end. So that's our most important criteria. We don't like too much market risk. So if you came up with a new bike sharing company,
mm,
we will unlikely invest, and we probably wouldn't even call you for an interview. So I think what's important is that you meet with the criteria of the VC. First of all, what are they looking for? So we're looking for breakthrough. If you're a
yes.
breakthrough and it's something that has a known and ready market, so basically a market looking, a problem looking for a solution, rather than for a solution looking for a problem. So for example, if you are new Facebook, there is no problem because people are pretty happy with Facebook. So if you're a
Mm,
new solution, you're a solution looking for a problem. We invest in problems looking for a solution. So it's already a known and ready market.
mm,
So if you came to us and you had a tech that is a real breakthrough that's already proven by you, but nobody seems to believe it, then we're the right people. And it can
mm,
be in any tech field,
mm.
but
Well,
known and
thanks.
ready market.
Thanks, Ada. Thanks, Finian. Okay, I got a tough one coming up, Finian. Are you ready? This is a
Mm,
anonymous LinkedIn user that says VC investment. This is a question on female founders, by the way. VC
mm.
investment, I'm sure you get that. VC investments in female founded businesses represented only 2.8% of capital invested across the entire US. Wow, this person has done their homework. Do you see VCs investing more in female founders in 2020 and beyond? What's your take on this?
I don't see any dramatic change uh, from the past, and it's not going to be sudden. It could be gradual. We are totally blind, right? When we invest,
Mm,
we don't care what race you are, we don't care what gender you are. It doesn't matter if even your gender is too complicated to explain. we we really don't mind. In fact, we have several companies that are sort of helmed by female founders, so we're totally blind. But whatever is was the cause for the low participation is probably still there. So I don't see any changes in that will cause a sudden switch to increase
mm.
or decrease any particular type of person that will get funded.
Okay, that's good. But I do hope, as a female founder myself, you would invest in more female founded companies for sure. Just got to say this on the record. Another question, dear Finian, through your journey as a VC in the deep tech space, what has been your biggest lesson learned? Thank you.
I think the biggest switch that we made was what I said earlier. We moved from taking risks in which we were relying on guesses
Mm,
into trying to rely on analysis. So my biggest failure actually was a company that we invested in called 24 Chuan, Chuan,
mm,
based in China,
mm,
and they were a Groupon wannabe.
mm,
And it was a very red ocean strategy. So lots of competitors, no competitive edge, and you had to burn in order to get customers. So it was a dog eat dog world, and we didn't have enough capital to back 24 when they were at that time number three. Uh, and today, Tianping has succeeded, Meituan, right? And they are the only success, and 999 failures. So I think that was our biggest failure. We put quite a lot of money, and it gave us an early setback in
mm,
Fund Three. But since then, other companies have done well, and we've climbed out of the hole. but we started negative because of that big hit on us. So we then decided that we should not be investing in B2C type businesses that require a lot of money, a lot
I
of
see.
and red ocean type strategy with not big IP protection and with a unknown market or unready market or markets that are still need to be developed. My biggest miss um, was Alibaba.
Ah,
Jack Ma came to see me with like 11 people at a valuation of 110 million, not 110 billion. So, and we didn't like the B2B idea because at that time it was a B2B space and we didn't like it. And so we didn't invest and
oh
invested in
no.
Baidu instead. Invested in Baidu instead. So that was the biggest absolute dollar missed. The
Mm,
biggest IRR miss was my friend John Hood, the ex chief scientific officer of Samaman. He came
mm,
out and started a company called Impact Bio, and gave us an opportunity to invest 5 million at a valuation of 50 million, so for roughly 9% of the company. And we shook hands and we were going to invest. And then our investor sort of was a little slow, so we didn't get the capital in time.
mm.
So we couldn't invest. And 18 months later, he sold the company for $7.5 billion.
Wow.
18 months from 55 million valuation to 7.5 billion. So more
Mm,
than 1,000, no, more than 100x in 18 months.
mm.
Um, Crazy. My
Well,
biggest miss.
you missed on Alibaba, but not too shabby on the Baidu pick. So you win some, you lose some. By the way, I love the concept of the red ocean strategy. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. We have
You know
more
what it means?
questions.
Red oceans
Yes,
means everybody fights so much
massacre,
that that's
massacre.
blood everywhere,
Mm,
basically.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. So I have a question from someone I know, Yangen. He works at JTC. If there's one thing you can change, actually, Yangen helps a lot of the startups at JTC. So
Mm.
thank you very much, Block 71 especially. If there's one thing you can change about our current startup landscape to encourage the emergence of more deep tech startups, what would that be? I think Yangon is very interested because he's helping a lot of startups, including mine, in the launchpad area.
Oh, wow. Actually, that's right smack in the science hub that I was trying to build when I was
I
in
know, right?
government.
So,
Yeah.
full circles, full circle.
So, being a venture capitalist, I obviously think that no country is ever doing enough to help us,
Mm-hmm.
Singapore included. I think the target should be like the Silicon Valley, and it's very hard to get there because it's a very deep ecosystem. So you have to ask yourselves, what what do we need to create an ecosystem for startup culture? Um, um, I don't think Singapore is focused on that. Singapore is trying to do its part, but it's not singularly focused. To try to make into Singapore into a Silicon Valley, um,
Mm,
a lot more needs to be done. We are still working basically from the playbook of the first generation leaders, Lee Kuan Yew's generation, which is the multinational corporation.
right.
So basically, we are trying to climb that ladder, and we're already near the top. In my view, the wall is no longer the right wall to climb on. We need to put the ladder on another wall, which is trying to make Singapore more innovative and more
Mm,
entrepreneurial. And that requires an entire change in mindset because you need an ecosystem where you have failures, you have successes, um, and you cannot have government-linked companies competing with them with unfair advantage. Um, you must allow them to be able to fail without dying. in
Mm.
a sense that if they are all stuck with mortgages and looking after their families and children, then they can't afford to fail, because then they are suddenly, left with no ability to bring food on the table. So there must be ways to allow people to start and fail, and create a totally different culture. Um, right now, right, our GDP is really assisted by the introduction of foreign workers,
Right.
millions of them, um,
Mm.
and they provide sort of muscle in construction sites, etc. Um, why are we doing that? Why don't we let robots do that? And why don't we, the space that they occupy, why don't we bring in truly talented people, startup founders, venture capitalists, etc., to make this place a lot more innovative
Mm.
and creative? And that will breed a whole eco culture beneath them. So we need to be the hub in Asia for venture capital, and we can be.
Mm. Wow, that's a lot of work to be done. So, Yangan, are you hearing this? I hope you're taking notes. I'm kidding. So thanks, Finian. That was actually a very kind of a wake up call. I think I agree with some of your points, but maybe it's better that you say it, not me. Okay, Emil Demont asks, hi, Finian, do you see EdTech, as a space that VCs will be investing into? And for companies that straddle B2B and B2C in the online and offline space within education and technology. I think we all know that EdTech, like Baiju's, they're doing VIP Kit. They're doing very well right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
We have some investments in EdTech. We have a university called California Intercontinental University based in the US.
I didn't know
We
you had a
also,
EdTech investment. I
yes,
didn't
we do.
know.
We also have another company called Allo 7, which is
Allo
based in
7.
Shanghai. Yeah,
Ah,
so they're like VIP kids,
mm,
and they're both of them are doing pretty well. We're not so focused on EdTech anymore, and the reason is because, as I mentioned earlier, we're a deep tech firm,
mm,
and nothing that you do in software uh, is necessarily uncopyable,
right.
because you can't really patent any part of that, right? You just have your source code, and somebody else can program it in a different way and getting the same result. So because of that, it's no longer deep enough from a technology perspective. But that's just us, that's our focus. Um, but it's a very exciting space, and whether you succeed or not depends on whether you pick the right narrow path, because the broad path has already been taken by many. So you need to focus on a certain expertise and make sure you have some competitive edge in that space.
Thanks, Emil, for the question. By the way, just someone says thank you for the frank comments on the culture and mindset change needed. So they appreciate that you are being very candid. I have a question from Dr. Alan Cheong, orthopedic surgeon. What do you think about the timing of startups in this tricky post COVID environment? Is this a time to launch a startup or to hide for a bit until the pandemic is over?
The barrier has is higher now. So
Mm,
if people were had a 7 score to invest, now they need a 9,
right.
because they have less money. Because first of all, their own startups are finding it harder to raise capital, so they have to reserve more capital to help their own companies, and so they
Yes.
have less dry powder. And then new VCs who would have been able to raise capital are not coming on stream. So I think, and because of unemployment, etc., there are more startups coming. So less supply of capital and more supply of startups, and more demand of capital for capital. So it's not the best time. But if you have a unique idea that is a breakthrough, then and people still don't believe, and is in the deep tech space, come to us. We we still have dry powder, and we're looking for new deals. And
Did,
we're not the only ones. There are a lot of other people still looking for such breakthroughs. It's just that the barrier and the hurdle is a bit higher now.
well, I think we just heard some good news. Vickers Venture Partners is clearly still investing. So, just an advertisement. Nobody paid me for this. If you have a great idea with intellectual property, you know who to pitch it to. The guy on this side of the screen. All right, this side, this side. All right. I have a question. Just it's more interesting. A little bit more lighthearted. Sorry. Joshua Al asks you, Finian. Moving forward, would we see more startups with founders and team members geographically dispersed because of remote work? If so, are there any untapped opportunities to serve such startups? I think this is just a COVID related question. And, the world is changing so rapidly. My entire company is working remotely right now. I haven't seen them in 3 months. So, are there opportunities right now for startups to form that way? That's an interesting question,
Uh,
Josh.
because I am of the camp that believes this is going to be a V-shaped recovery and that a vaccine
V
will be
shape.
found within 12 months, right? So
Mm-hmm.
because I believe in that, I think life will just go back to normal. There's no new normal.
Ah,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, and the reason is because we are very social creatures.
Yes.
Zoom and video conferences are never the same.
Yeah.
It's very different when you go to a place where there are 1,000 people attending a conference compared to a Zoom where you don't see the 1,000 people, right? It's very different, and it never replicates it properly. So I don't see this as sort of creating new opportunities going forward, assuming a short-term recovery. Of course, if it's a long-term recovery, then it's another matter altogether. Um, so because of that, I think we will go back to normal,
Mm,
and we will be partying and going for stadium events and conferences, etc., and flying here and there within a couple of years when
mm,
the vaccine is found. Why am I convinced that a vaccine is found? Because RNA viruses is not as difficult as AIDS, for example, which took many decades to solve.
mm,
Um, in fact, we were about to launch our pandemic flu vaccine, and we're now doing it as a dual purpose trial in the US together with COVID-19. And in the background, we are developing a universal coronavirus vaccine,
mm.
which will even prevent from future coronavirus infections in the future. So I think I'm quite optimistic. The amount of uh, money being pumped into COVID-19 vaccine producers today is 100 times more than anything we have ever seen. So with so much capital and so much research and so much development in RNA virus therapeutics and vaccines up to this point before COVID-19 happened makes me very optimistic.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you believe we are going to have a V-shaped recovery because I run a media company and I definitely hope more companies start advertising again and that I can travel and perhaps we can even have a real lunch, not a virtual lunch on LinkedIn. Okay, I have we have about 4 to 4 minutes left. I'm just gonna try to maximize the rest of the time I have with you. Ask you about two more questions. Hopefully that we can squeeze those in. Finian, uh, Chu Chon Man, CM, asks, how has the COVID situation changed the way startups operate, especially in the global market? How do we embrace it? I think, Finian, you must be giving advice to your startup companies, right? On how to stay alive, tide through, stretch their money and their runway. Could you give us, all of us, some advice on the same advice you give your startup companies, please?
Yeah, we were lucky because, being Singaporeans, the team here and in China as well, have already experienced SARS before. So
Yes.
in February, when we saw what was happening, we already sent around email to everybody to conserve cash. So we were ahead of the game before the Americans and the Westerners sort of caught on to it. So that was good advice. Governments have been very helpful. A lot of our startups have been able to get help from
Mm.
governments, funding, sort of payments for the employees, etc., which has gone a long way. We also reserve dry powder for them, so we managed to help them. So 98% of our companies have enough money for at least 12 months of runway. So that's very good. The question was basically, how has it changed for them to
Mm.
operate? Conserving cash is, of course, important, but applying for all the grants that are available, making sure they have all the capital, and it's a good time to see whether your startup is resilient.
Right.
Because even though you are running a startup, it doesn't mean that you have to stick to it, even if it's not showing results. Staying longer than you should, it should be avoided. Sometimes, basically, you're climbing up the ladder and the ladder is on the wrong wall. So don't keep climbing. Maybe switch the wall and pivot. We have a company called Match Move, which used to be a
Mm.
game company, a game aggregator. And then halfway through, they became a payment company. And we are one of the companies that are right now trying to be a digital bank.
Yes.
So it's moved from game company to payment and now into banking. So it's okay to pivot.
Mm. I like that because many of companies, including mine, are trying to pivot in the to respond to the COVID pandemic, including this live feed, for example. All
You
right,
know,
Finian.
good food, right, starts smelling good early.
Right.
So if it doesn't show that a lot of
Ah,
acceptance to what you're trying to do early,
mm, mm.
um, sometimes maybe it's the wrong focus.
I like that. I like the analogy you gave. So we
Mm.
have just time for one last question, Finian, and this will be a personal one, a long one actually. Dorji Sun, also from Young Global Leaders, founder of Perlin, which is a blockchain company. Uh, just a shout out. Hi, Dorji. Dorji asks you, Finian, what do you do for personal productivity? What do you do when you wake up in the morning? Is that a lot of information, Dorji? Do you have a routine for food, fasting, meditation, or optimizing of your timetables? Bonus question. Thoughts on climate change, startup opportunities. Yeah.
One of the best
Last
things I
question.
did do, yeah, one of the best things I did for before the lockdown was to buy a gym. So I
Mm,
have a full gym upstairs where I can do all my exercises because I couldn't go for several months. In fact, I was quarantined for 14 days, so that was
right.
very nice. So I try to gym about 7 hours a week, rotating between strength and cardio because I'm an old guy. I need to sort of maintain my health.
Mm,
I try not to eat too much. If ever I take my weight every day, if ever I sort of feel that I'm gaining too much fat, then I make sure I cut down the next few days and stay within the band. The first thing I do in the morning is kiss my wife and my four babies. I have quadruplets. It's crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Mm,
Four of them, three of them from surrogates in the US,
mhm.
and then during the surrogacy, my wife suddenly, unexpectedly got pregnant,
This is
and
amazing
then
story,
now,
by the way. Amazing
yeah,
story.
now we have four babies.
Mm,
And the first thing I do is after kissing my wife, is play with them for like 5, 10 minutes,
mhm,
and then start preparing for my day and
mm,
work. Then I make sure I take walks with my babies
mhm,
for an hour a day whenever it's not raining. And now that I'm in Singapore, I can do that for as long as I'm sort of based here.
mm,
So other than that, I've got different work, right, which is pushed by my people, my team.
mm.
All of them have different problems to solve. And generally, when it comes to me, it's life or death. So I have to
Yes.
deal with life or death issues daily. And so decision making is the most important work that I do. Um, and trying to make the best decisions for everything occupies my day.
Mm,
You can always, if it's a no-brainer decision, it means that one way is all benefits and hardly any cost, and the other way is all cost and no benefit, right? But generally, it's not so simple because if it comes to me, it's a difficult decision. So both of them have roughly the same cost benefit. And I have to see the problem with the lens that has been shaped by my life experiences and my training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they are not always right, uh, but the buck stops with me, so I have no choice. I have to make the decision, and hopefully it is the right one.
Well, we don't have time for the bonus question, although Dorji is a climate change warrior. So,
Oh,
shout out to
so am
you.
I. So am
Oh,
I. So
and
yeah,
our
so we have this biodegradable plastic company, RWDC. We have
mm,
a new X-ray machine, right? That
mm,
is 1,000 times more accurate and 100 times less toxic, and that will be very, very useful to sort of make sure that we can detect nuclear, we can reduce radiation. We have a kidney dialysis machine that is the size of a handbag, and that's also based in Singapore in a company called AWAC.
yes,
Um,
I know AWAC.
yes, that's very exciting. We have a new drug delivery company. So not all of them are directly related to climate change, but all of them are impactful and will make the world a better place.
And that seems like a perfect place to end our LinkedIn Live, which is making the world a better place. Thank you, Dorji, for the last question. And also, thank you, LinkedIn. And last but not least, thank you, Dr. Finian Tan, founder and chairman of Vickers Venture Partners, for spending a virtual lunch with me.
This is
Um,
very enjoyable. Thank you.
and before I go, I must say, please, Finian, please send my regards to Fiona, and I hope you get some sleep tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.